Okay, we're moving on into our next phase of the project here, which is making new metal hard lines for the brake and fuel system. So I want to take a minute here and talk to you guys a little bit about materials and processes and tools. So bear with me here a minute. I'm going to start off with the forming side. If you guys have ever seen one of these, it's just a regular old, like AutoZone style forming tool. You take your line, you stick it in there. Oh, I guess I'm doing it backward from where I'm standing. You stick it in there and you can use that to, pull the line around this radius and make a nice bend in it. The short answer about these, and there's some other style where you put the line in and you can bend them, is that these work pretty much fine. I've had this one for years and years and years and have used it hundreds of times. You can also just, put a socket in your vise, and you'll have to do that sometimes to get a tighter radius, because the smallest bend you'll be able to make is the diameter of this thing, which isn't very tight if you're working on factory stuff. A lot of times they make really tight S-bends and stuff. But anyway, this and its sister tool, the scissors kind of style is what I'll call them, work just fine. Never ever use them. Don't buy one. And I'll explain why. What you want to be doing is use this copper nickel tube instead. That stuff is required for steel tube. This NICOP line is so soft and so easy to form that you can just do it. I'm using no effort here whatsoever. You can just do it by hand. And if you take a look at that, I hope the camera gets it. It's not crimped, it's not messed up at all, and you can undo it real easily by hand too. This stuff straightens out really nicely. So yeah, that's my statement on that, is buy this stuff. Don't buy steel line, so you don't have to use one of these. Steel line makes this job absolutely miserable. Steel line's also more prone to failure. And a side note there, first of all, really in the video, I should say, thank you all the dirt cheap, greedy manufacturers that won't put stainless steel lines on vehicles from the factory. They buy millions and millions and millions of feet of tube every year, and they won't pay another 10% to get steel or stainless or NICOP and keep putting steel junk on it. GM in particular is inexcusable because they're not using plastic fuel lines for the whole vehicle. Maybe now they are. This is an old truck. Maybe if you buy a brand new Chevy, it's got plastic fuel lines on it, but my Escort's got plastic lines on it. It's a 95. So, the 93 Escort had them. So you're talking vehicles that are, half a decade older than this thing had already moved on to nylon fuel line, which is the way to go with fuel. So anyway, don't even do this. Just buy this stuff. You can get a 25-foot roll of this stuff on Amazon in pretty much any size you want for about 25 bucks. It's about $1 a foot. So on this truck, I might use half a roll. So you're talking, 12 bucks, maybe 20 bucks, even if my prices are off. This stuff is cheaper by the roll than buying, the solid sticks of steel down at the parts store. And the other advantage there is if you buy a 25-foot roll, you don't have to have a million unions in it to get it to replace an entire line. You just put a whole new run in, just like the factory did, and you have fewer leak points and everything. So that's the brief statement on forming tools. I guess to make it slightly less brief, don't buy these bending springs. These are for copper line, for like in a for house plumbing, for copper, I think type M, soft copper. I've never tried it for these NICOP lines, but the smallest one of these I have is for 1/4-inch tube, which I actually do have to form some quarter. But anyway, yeah, bought these and thought, hey, that sounds like a great idea. Never once used them. I've had them for like 20 years, 25 years. So don't make that mistake. Moving on, speaking of lines, mentioned earlier, I bought, I'm not going to pull this out because I got a feeling it is literally a big spring of a thing. But I bought this Stone Guard spring to put over some of this line. You'll see in the Blazer, that some of this line goes inside these springs. I've never bought this stuff before. I've never used it before. I've never felt that I really had anything where I needed to. I've seen the factory put it on here and there, and just kind of like, well, they're the factory. They're fraidy cats or whatever. Somebody's off-roads the thing and throws a stick up there. I'm not going to off-road. Anyway, so I kind of always looked at it as a factory just being a fraidy cat putting this stuff on. And plus, this stuff rots out the lines. It helps to. It holds moisture in here, it'll hold dirt in here, and that'll rust out the lines. Now with these NICOP lines, it's not really as big of a concern. But anyhow, why I decided to use this on the Blazer is because those lines run right on top of the frame the whole way down the truck. So anytime I'm going down the highway or anything and hit a bump, there's a potential for those lines to be rubbing the frame. And especially since I cut that stupid mud flap thing off and I'm leaving that open. Now it is actually a rot guard too. The factory lines had them right there, and I think it's probably a good idea. So I'm going to be using that stuff on the ones that go on the frame because I don't want this NICOP line, which is natively soft, to just sit on the frame and rub. This is a job that's too much work, even for a beater that I'm not expecting a lot out of. It's still too much work to want to redo it later. So, so this stuff also. This is a 16-foot set, which I think is probably enough to do my whole neighborhood. And it was, I think, 23 bucks. So this stuff isn't a lot of money. Also from Amazon. I'll link everything I possibly can. Moving on to more of the well, I guess this kind of falls into forming too. Cutting tools. I would say spend a little money here and get a good pipe cutter. This is an Ideal. I bought it at Home Depot, again, like 25 years ago, something like that. It's got replaceable wheels. It's always done a nice job for me. The like Harbor Freight versions of these are like ultra sloppy, and they don't want to, the blade won't track true to these rollers up here, and you'll get wonky cuts. In fact, this one might be, I don't know if that's in the blade or not, but it's getting maybe enough wear in it where it's starting to do that. And that's especially obvious on this NICOP line for some reason, maybe just because it's soft. But anyway, spend some money, get a decent pipe cutter. I think on Amazon, the Milwaukee one is well reviewed. Just one of these should probably cost you about 20 bucks to get a nice quality tool that won't cause you trouble. By contrast, this little itty bitty one, which I also suggest you get one of these for using on the vehicle. If you have to make an on the vehicle patch, you don't have room to spin one of these big ones around. This little one is an OEM brand one, I think from AutoZone, and I think I broke the first one straight out of the box, like snapped something off, took it back, they gave me another one. This thing's just an utter hunk of shit. Utter hunk of garbage. It's really, really sloppy. I was showing you, I was complaining about this one, and I can feel that move. I don't know if you can see it move, but you certainly can't hear it. And that one I think is getting sloppy. This thing, so getting this to try and cut true to the rollers in it is just a real crapshoot. So I haven't sought out a high quality version of this because I use it on one or two cuts on the vehicle, and I just try and be careful with it and move on. So anyway, get a little one, get a big one. Definitely try and spend some money on them. Get a nice big one, not a junky big one, because the junk ones are junk. Oh, one other thing, flare nut ends. Again, bought these on Amazon. For anything that I would ever intend to keep or drive, more than a few thousand miles like these things, I buy stainless. These are just metal because these are for the Blazer, and I'm not real worried about what it's going to be like in 10 years or 15 years. But the stainless ones, again, I order them on Amazon, and I think they're about $1 a piece. For redoing the rear axle lines on this thing, I'll use 4 of them. So that's $4 to get stainless ones that you never have to worry about again. So if a wheel cylinder blows up 5 years later, and you got to get under there and take this flare nut back out of the cylinder, no sweat, stainless flare nut, it'll back right off. I do like to put just a touch of anti-seize on them to make sure they don't gall. Other than that, good to go. So this time I'm not, because we're on a budget and I don't think it really matters, but normally I would buy stainless ones, and I suggest you do as well. Moving on to end forming. A lot of you guys have probably seen this style of tool, used this style of tool. This one's brand new because I just made Harbor Freight warranty, the one I'd been using for ages and ages. These kits are fairly terrible. Let me back up for a minute. My dad has a kit of this style from the 70s, or maybe even late 60s, from I think Mac or Snap-on, and his kit's awesome. That thing works bang on perfect every time. It's still big, it's still the same architecture, so it's still hard to get in places, but it makes beautiful flares. So my assumption is, since that was, when he bought it 30 years ago, probably $100 set, that the tolerances on these sizes are probably better. The machining knurl inside them to actually hold the tube so it doesn't slip through is probably better. The sizes on these arbors are probably more precise. So I wouldn't say to throw this style of flaring tool out with the bathwater per se, but these junk ones, these cheap quality Harbor Freight and OEM and basically the China ones, they're gonna make your life hard. If that's what your budget allows, these do work. Yeah, I used the set before this for like 10 years and I absolutely hated it, but I made a lot of lines with it. So if that's the budget you've got, it'll work, but I don't recommend it. Moving on to what I do recommend, we'll save this. Again, some of you guys may have seen this before. There are wonderful tutorials out there on how this thing works and everything else, so I won't necessarily get into that unless there are requests for it later on. But this is the Eastwood flaring tool, and it is an absolute game changer. This thing's a monster. It is expensive. I think I paid about $200 for this tool. So, the Harbor Freight tool is like $9.99, and this is like $190. So, believe me, I hear you if you're saying, well, I just have brake lines to do on one car, and get the Harbor Freight stuff and take your time, and it'll come out okay. Me, I've been doing this as a hobbyist for like 25 years. I've done so many lines that the last time I had to do them, which was on sippy cup, I'm like, you know what? I'm buying the good stuff, and that's what I did, and I do not regret one penny of it for 1 minute. This thing is marvelous. So other than me just falling all over it telling you it's great, that's about all I have to say about it. If you have the budget, you do brake lines with any kind of frequency at all, get one. Just don't even think about it, get one. If you're a professional, there's absolutely no question, get one. This thing's also a really quality tool. I would bet just that chunk of it in my hand probably goes about 8 or 9 pounds. It's got a really good quality feel to it. Well constructed. These dies are very well machined. They fit the line very well. In fact, that's one thing with this NICOP line I've noticed, and that's what I was going to say with my cutter, is if this line isn't like perfectly straight, like cut perfectly flush, it doesn't matter what kind of forming tool you use on the end of it. It wants to kind of mushroom it sideways and make funny forms. I actually use this tool as a line straightener. You can just put the dies, this is exaggerated of course, but well, I suppose right there it's not too exaggerated. You can just put the dies in the tool, straighter than that of course. Put the dies in the tool with the line in it, and then pop the tool apart, put the assembly in, and then crank that guy down and crank so these dies come tight, and it'll actually straighten the line. So before I make a cut, I actually like to use this as a line straightener because I don't have one of the fancy line straightening roller machines yet. I very nearly bought one before this project, but those are also like $200, and decided for right now we can live without it. But anyway, this is a fantastic tool. Have nothing but good things to say about it. It's amazing. If you think about getting one, get one. No. Next best thing. Also the Eastwood line. This is the handheld version of that tool for 3/16 line, which is what this is. It's what the rear axle on this thing uses. So those 2 axle lines that run down the housing are 3/16. On Escorts, all the rear brake lines are 3/16. So especially, I bought this for sippy cup for flaring on the vehicle connection, because I only replaced it up to the firewall on that, where the Blazer actually has a union right there. The Escorts don't from the factory. So now my Escort does have a union. So I had to make on the car flares. This tool is absolutely amazing. I don't think this tool gets as much press as the other one. So in fact, I might do a follow-up video at some point just for this guy. But basically this guy is really just a handheld version of this, and it's amazing. What I said, and this guy is, I think, unfortunately pretty expensive too. Speaking off the top of my head, I want to say this was like 50 bucks. Again, no buyer's remorse. I absolutely love this thing. In fact, at the beginning of this project, I went back to buy a 5/16 version of this and a 3/8 because those are all the fuel and brake line sizes for the Blazer, and Eastwood doesn't sell them. They only sell the 3/16 in the handheld for on-vehicle use, and I was really bummed. I would have easily spent another $100, $120 to get those two other sizes because I like this one so much, but I just couldn't. Which brings me to this guy. And this guy is the same theory of operation as this guy, that it's intended to be an on-the-vehicle tool, and I haven't used it yet. It's brand new to me, so I don't know how it works. But it comes with different size dies. It's the same theory, slightly different approach. It uses forming dies a little more like the Harbor Freight style. But this guy, for the three sizes it does, which I think are 3/16, quarter, and 5/16, are, it'll be fine if it works, but the Amazon reviews on it are super shady. There's a lot of people that are like, I used this thing once and it broke and blah, blah, blah. And apparently the company that makes this, which is Calvan, CAL-VAN tools, doesn't respond to email. So when you buy this, it's basically warranty free. You don't get anything. I want to say this kit was 30 bucks. I think this Eastwood single one was double that price, and I would have happily paid it for the two other sizes if they made them. They just don't. So we'll see how this guy goes. I've got a feeling that I might have to use this on the fuel lines, because I don't think I can actually take them all the way off the truck or I hope I don't have to take them all the way off the truck. But anyway, so super skeptical. Anyway, that's the big rambletron. My approach to making new hard lines, the tools I like to use to do it. As you can see here, I've used all the way from the cheapest stuff you can get at the auto parts store to professional quality, very expensive tools. And if there's one takeaway from this I want you to really take with you and consider, is use NICOP line. It'll make your life so much easier. And if you've got another couple dollars past that, buy stainless flare nuts, so you don't have to ever worry about anything again. So, rambletron over. Alright, so this is well, first of all, I decided it ain't no fun if the homies can't have none, so we'll make one. This is a line I just bent by hand, and that's about as straight as I can get it, just with hand power, and I put a wrench on it to kind of straighten it out. And it still won't go in these dies, and it's still not straight enough to get a square cut on it. So I'm actually going to use these dies in the vise as a straightening fixture, so give me just a sec here. Alright, so that's just snug in the vise, and you can see they're not together yet. We'll just clamp them down. We'll give them a good snuggie. And then what I'll do is I'll slide some more of that line on through, and we'll keep straightening it in small sections. Give her another crank. And that should fit in the tool now, and this line should be nice and straight. Not quite as straight as I want it yet. It's got like a little dimple in it. So we're going to run it back in and see what we can do. Okay, so that's after another couple attempts going 90 degrees in the die, and the first couple inches of this thing is pretty much a laser straight. So if I were to want to cut that, I would get a nice perpendicular face on it, and this will slide in those dies really nice for an end form. I'll go grab a fitting and set the tool up, and we'll just make a flare. I'll show you how nice it turns out. Alright, first thing, these dies are labeled for 45 degree, and the other side will be DIN for like bubble flares. We're making 45 degree flares, so we want to make sure this side goes that way. And the first thing the Eastwood tool tells you to do is to apply NICs to the dies you're going to use, so I've already done that. And then of course don't forget to put your flare nut on before you're going to make a flare. Slide, well, probably can't do it one-handed because I don't think you can slide it in. I think you have to put it in as assembly, so one sec. Even though I straightened that, I still had to soft mount these guys in. But anyway, The next thing we're going to do, should have put the handle in before, I guess, is you want to be on op 0, and that's going to say how much line sticks out. So we'll go ahead and boop. Okay, so got that done. The line should be flush with the dies. It is. And we put the tool there. Oh, because it was in the box. Okay, we clamp these guys down. Okay, we're making a 3/16, so we want to index over to op 1. Give her a pull. That's that. Now we want to index over to op 2 3/16. Give me a second here, I'll show you how it turned out. And there it is. Literally like it was made by a machine, because it was. But yeah, that thing just kicks out amazing flares. You wouldn't be able to tell that that wasn't done by the factory. Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And the on-vehicle version works just as nice too. So yeah, if you can at all afford it, the Eastwood machine is just the best. But anyway, the real key with this stuff is, you see how I got that super nice end form, is you really do have to make sure this stuff is just perfectly straight before you cut it, or else it'll flare funky. You'll see like weird ovular stuff in there and all kinds of not good things. But anyway, that is how the machine works. It takes about 45 seconds to make a flare once you got the hang of it, and that's all there is to her. Alright guys, this one wasn't just perfectly dead square when I cut it, because I cut it on the truck. And you can see that with this NICOP line, the end of it's just a little bit funky. Just a touch, kind of on the right hand side there, I think. If I tried to crimp it this way, I'd get a crappy end out of it. So I've already put it in the dies and straightened it up. I'm going to have to cut the end of this again. I'm pretty sure I got plenty of material to be able to do that. And then I'll be able to flare it. So just FYI, it doesn't take much with this stuff, in my experience, to just kind of doink you.